Welcome back to another DevCast. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Ali Hockaborn, and I am on the developer support team with Jim Crespino. Today, Jim, who is the Senior Director of Developer Evangelism, is going to talk to you about how to support the upcoming changes to the metrics subscriptions. Let's see. So, as usual, there will be a live 10-minute Q&A at the end of the tutorial, and there's a little bit of a change. I think I'm going to stop emailing people or I am going to stop emailing everybody the on-demand video to keep your inboxes uncluttered. But after every DevCast, we always record them, and we're uploading them to our YouTube channel, Genesys Community YouTube channel. Sorry, misspoke. Anyway, you can access it from the Developer Center video page as seen below. And I think that about covers the housekeeping. So Jim's got a great DevCast for you today. So take it away, Jim.
All right, thanks, Ali. All right, everybody. So my name is Jim Crespino, and I am going to talk about the Analytics API and an upcoming change that's scheduled for that. Let me share my screen and we'll get going. You'll be glad to know I don't have a single slide to share with you. All right, get that out of the way and get that out of the way. So I have some room to work. And so I live and breathe the Developer Center. My passion here at Genesys is our APIs and our developer community. And so I live and breathe in the Developer Center. And I'm going to show you today not only the upcoming change to the Analytics API, but I hope by the time that we're done, you're going to see some cool ways to use the Developer Center that our developer experience team has built. So first of all, as Ali said, this video is being recorded and it will be available to you. If you come to the Developer Center, we have a couple of links out here. We have a video page where if you click on that.
Hey, Jim, do you want to minimize the Zoom screen, or are we on the right screen?
I am sharing the wrong screen. Thanks, Ali.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks to the person in chat who also pointed out.
You know what? It's funny. Every day I share my other screen, which is over on the left-hand side. Sorry about that. All right. So let me get back to the main Developer Center here. So the Developer Center landing page, there's two ways to see the recorded DevCast that we're doing. There's the video link over here that you can click on, which will take you to a page where you can click to go out to YouTube. Alternatively, on the main page, down at the very bottom, is a link for DevCast and newsletter. So if you click on that, that also has a link out to YouTube to go look at the previous DevCasts, but it also has the ability to sign up for newsletter signups. So if you want to reach receive our monthly newsletter, you can sign up there. So that's some housekeeping. Now let's talk about announcements. So Genesys, as we develop new APIs, make changes to APIs, we make those announcements on our webpage and on our developer forum. So under resources is an announcement link. This is a proactive link, right? You've got to come out to the Developer Center. You've got to click announcements on a periodic basis and check and see what's new, what's happening. So this lists all the things that we've done going back for a period of time. I'm actually going to be talking about this one today, the analytics metrics changes, but all of our announcements are out here, as well as at the top of some of our pages, you'll see announcements as well. If you're like me, you don't proactively go out and check announcements on all of the developer portals that you have to access on a daily basis. So we have our developer forum, we'll link at the bottom of the page. You go to the developer forum, it also has an announcements section that mirrors that static page of content. And here, if you log in, if you set up a login and sign in, you can ask to be emailed about certain forum topics. So you can select to be emailed about announcements so that you are proactively notified, like on a monthly basis or on a weekly basis, about things that are going on at Genesys. So I would encourage you to do that. Again, here's the list of announcements, and the one I'm going to be focusing on is for our analytics API and the metrics changes that will be coming. So let's just go in there and take a look at that. So on September 23rd, so about 2 months, a little less than 2 months from now, we are going to make a change to our analytics API that's going to affect aggregate and observation metrics. So those are the ones where it's not the raw data, so it's not the CDR, the conversation detail records necessarily, but it's the counts of things like the SLA, the calls in queue, the average handle times, those kind of things that we're calculating, those metrics. The way that you go about getting those is going to change. The analytics API, you can think of it as a SQL query, where you've got a select statement, a where statement, an order by statement, etc. And right now, the analytics API, if you don't tell it specifically what you want, it's like using the asterisk wildcard on the SQL statement. Select star, where the queue is this and the date range is this, right? And you would get all of the metrics the analytics API collects for that queue. That is going to change on September 23rd. We're no longer going to support that wildcard. So if you don't specify the things that you want, you are going to get nothing. Your request to the analytics API for data is going to return you 0. So on September 23rd, when you make a request to the analytics API, you are now going to have to say, I want these metrics, you know, the number of calls offered, the number of calls answered, the SLA, whatever metrics you need, you now have to request those. And to be honest, as a developer, I would probably would have taken the easy route out using the analytics API. I would have said, just give me everything. I wouldn't have specified metrics up to now. And I would have just spun through the returned JSON and taken out the metrics that I wanted. You're going to have to go change your code, and you're going to have to be a little more specific now. Tell us what you want, and we'll return those things to you. So if you have built an integration to pull metrics, I'll encourage you to go out now and look through that code and make sure you're specifying metrics so that when you come in on September 23rd, your phone or inbox are not just ringing off the hook or filled because you know, your dashboard or your reports are not returning data. All right, now I'm going to show you a little bit about how to build that. If you're not familiar with the analytics API, hang on, because I'm going to show you how to use that with some of the tools that we have. So let's go look from a user interface perspective how Genesys shows the analytics API today. So if you log into Genesys Cloud, Pure Cloud, whatever you want to call it, if you log into there and you have the ability to see the performance menu. So this is restricted by permissions. You may not have the performance menu today, but if you ask your administrator, they can probably give you the permission to be able to see the performance menu. And I selected performance and went to queues, and that brought up this view. So this view is using the analytics API behind the scenes, and it's pulling data and displaying it in a dashboard to you. And activity is a current snapshot in time. So this is showing how many calls are waiting in queue, how many are actually being handled, what the service level is, and it's a snapshot in time. Like right now, this is what's going on. And you can see there's not a lot of activity. There's not even anybody on queue. If I go on queue, shrink that out of the way, and we give it a second. It shows now that there's one person on queue. Okay, so that's great. If I toggle my state back to a break, it's going to toggle back to off queue in a second. So you can see that. If I go to the developer tools, so if you're not familiar with the developer tools, on the Developer Center landing page, there's a whole section called tools. And there's a web chat tool. So I'm going to go to the web chat tool and submit a chat, because that's the easiest way to get a chat into the system. I'm just going to use the default, I'm going to send everything into my App Foundry queue that I have, and I'm going to use this pre-filled data, populate the fields, and start a chat. So that chat's going to go into queue. Give it a second. All right, so that chat's in queue. If I pop back over to Genesys Cloud, I can see I've got one interaction waiting. I've specified a filter over here. I've chosen the filters, and I've still only shown me chats. So I've got one chat sitting in queue, just waiting for someone to become available. If I go on queue, I'm going to get that chat. I'm going to answer that. And I'm going to shrink this away so we can see the dashboard. And you can see that I've got one interaction, right? My service level is only 50% today. If I go to performance, this is more a performance over a time period, so I can see how many chats I've handled for the day for the App Foundry queue, average speed of answer, the service level, wait time, handle time, talk time, after call work time, etc. So all those metrics, this is where you can come into Genesys Cloud and you can see the metrics in a user interface view. And if you wanted to, you can come down here and pop open the developer tools, and you can go to the network tab. And if I change my view and come back, you can actually watch the API requests that are going up, and you can see the calls to the analytics API. We'll give this a chance to settle down. Surveys, make this a little bigger so you can actually see a range of things here. And if I conversations. So you can take a look at any time, come in here and see the API requests that are going up and the JSON that is sent up to get that data, and then what the response looks like. So there were apparently no survey data at this time. But that's a good way to see how Genesys Cloud is doing it, and then you can take advantage of that in your code. But we have better tools than having to rely on the browser developer tools and having to look through network logs. So I want to show you that. First of all, before I get to the tools, let's talk about the Analytics API itself. Let me show you how I got to the Analytics API. If I go back to the Genesys Cloud landing page, under Resources, we've got APIs. And under APIs, we've got our Platform API and API resources. And here's a list of all the API categories that we have on the left-hand side. And I'm interested in the Analytics API today. That's what I'm going to be talking to you guys about. So this is the Swagger documentation for the Analytics API. You can go look at any of the requests if you want to see queue observations. It's way down here. Analytics queue observation query, right? So here's the raw data. That's all well and good. On the left-hand side is some really great documentation on how to use the API. So if you want to get call details, here's how to get the conversation details, right? It goes into in-depth about all the properties of the JSON that you need to send, size limitations on the responses, how fast, whether you want to use a query or whether you want to use an asynchronous job, etc. So I would encourage you, if you're going to use one of the analytics requests, come take a look at the details over here on the left and learn how to use that. We've got some, also at the very top is just how to use the Analytics API overview, which is a good starting point. And then as this change is going to encourage you to start specifying metrics, we also document the name of all of our metrics that are available. So on the left-hand side, there's a metrics category, and you can come in here and you can see what the metrics definitions, what the name of them are and what they return to you. So not all metrics apply to all queries. You can imagine that getting agent ready on a queue, it may not be appropriate. But number of calls in queue would be appropriate. So you need to look at the metric and the description of it. And there are different categories of metrics. We try and break them out. Like you want to get a count of IVR flow metrics. There's those, there's user metrics, there's queue activity metrics that are available to you, gamification metrics, predictive analytics, journey metrics, evaluation metrics, transcript metrics, etc. So as you're making your queries, you can figure out the names of those things that you want to specify in the select clause and take a look at those. So now let's talk about how to actually play with the analytics API, because it's great that we document it, but I don't really want to write any code yet. I just want to play with the analytics API. So again, at our developer landing page, we have a great section on tools. And one of those tools is the Analytics Query Builder. I've actually got that open in another tab. So that opens up here. That opens up to this tool. The tools are on the left, so you don't have to go back to the landing page every time. You can come to any of these tools at any time. And the Analytics Query Builder allows you to build those SQL statements, let's call them SQL statements, to send the REST request to get that analytics data out of Genesys Cloud. There are different query types. I'm going to stick with queue observations for today. The select part of it are what are the metrics I want to get, and I'm going to show you today, starting with the no metrics, which we want to fix. I'm not going to specify any metrics to start with, and then I'm going to select the where clause. So the where clause is done by filters. All right, this says the behaves like a SQL where clause, and you can do ands and ors. I'm going to do an and I'm going to say I want my first predicate is going to be the queue. I want to say where the queue is at Foundry, and I'm going to add a second predicate, and I'm going to say where the media type is chat. Okay, we pre-fill those. If you look on the right-hand side, it's building the JSON for me. So it created my filter. It said this is an and filter with two predicates in it. Notice I selected the App Foundry queue name over here. Our UI does that for you. It translates the ugly GUIDs into a nice readable name. But when you're actually using the API in code, unfortunately, you have to specify the GUID. That's just the way it is. And the media type is over here. If I execute this query right now, today, before September 23rd, our API is going to give me every metric available for queue observations. It's going to be like a select star. I run this, it runs live against my org. I'm actually logged into Genesys Cloud. You saw that on that first tab where I was showing you the performance view. I'm logged in as me. These tools run as me against my Genesys Cloud org, and it returned me that same data that the performance view in the UI is getting. It returned it to me here as JSON data that I can handle programmatically. So I get all the same results, the snapshots in time, the activity over a period of time as well. So on September 23rd, if I execute this query with no metrics specified, I'm going to get an empty JSON back. I might get an error, but I'm probably going to get just empty back. If the request is correct, but I tell it I don't want anything, then it's going to return me nothing. So you're going to have to, from that point on, start selecting the metrics that you want. And if you want them all, you can request them all. You just have to put them all in. And you can see as you do that, it's building this metrics array over here on the right in the JSON payload that gets sent to that request. And now when I execute that query, I'll just get those 3 metrics instead of all the metrics, okay? So that's a big change. I want you guys to understand that on September 23rd, you don't want to wake up and have to scramble to support this change. So we're trying to give you plenty of heads up that this is coming. The last thing is, it's great that the Analytics Query Builder builds the JSON for you, right? But maybe you want some code, right? You want some starting code to actually execute that payload. And unfortunately, the query builder doesn't show you the raw code, but we have another tool for that. So over here on the left-hand side, we have the code editor, which I have open in yet another tab. So the code editor is the ability to write some JavaScript and run it in the console, run it here in your browser live. And I want to show you how to use that. So I'm going to start with a blank slate, and I'm going to come over here to the documentation tab. So our documentation for our JavaScript SDK is all here on the right-hand side. And if I want the Analytics API, I can select that. And it tells me all the methods that are available in that API. And I want to come over here to get analytics. Actually, I want the post, because I'm going to do a post queue observation query. Okay, so if I click on that, it says, all right, to do a post analytics queues observation query, you've got to make this request. Here's what the body would look like. You've got to fill that out. And here's an example of how you would do it in code. Well, I can take that code, copy that. So this code is really meant to be put into like a Node.js application or something in like a Visual Studio Code or whatever your editor of choice is these days. But you can also take this code and you can pop it over here in the code editor. And I do have to modify this a little bit because this code editor already does basically these first 3 lines for me. It creates a platform client for me. If I was running in the browser or I'm running in Node.js, I'd have to create an instance of the platform client SDK. I don't need those. I also don't need an access token because I'm already logged in as Jim Crespino into this org. So I have an access token cached in a cookie in my browser, and the code editor will just use that. So I don't need to specify that. So I can start with this code right here. You can see it's going to use the API instance, and it's going to make a post request to the analytics queue observation query, and it's going to send in a body. But right now that body is empty. So let's pop back over here to my query builder. I'm going to take this, get all the braces, copy this, and I'm going to go back to my code editor, and instead of sending empty braces, I'm going to send that JSON payload. And if I click run, did it? Did I miss it? Well, let's do this. Sure, must have mistyped something. If I click run. Oh, this is great. It is sending to the wrong endpoint, so it's sending to, I got to refresh. Reload my browser. Luckily, it keeps my code. It'll keep your code. So if you like start some code, shut down your browser, you come back tomorrow, you want to work on that code, you can do that. And I can click run now. Wow. Interesting. Well, apparently I left this up, and it apparently timed out and lost who I logged in as. Try one more time. I'll try and load some code to the current user and see what that is.
Hey, Jim, while you're troubleshooting this, someone asked a question I thought might be worth clarifying before we move on. All of your examples are queue observation, and the person was wondering, does this not impact analytics conversation queries?
Only only queries that do aggregates or observations. So like a conversation details query that's getting raw data where we're not aggregating those will still work. You don't have to worry about that. So if you're getting the raw data, you're getting raw queue data or raw conversation data, those are not impacted. And actually, if we go back and look, it tells you specifically what queries are impacted. So conversation aggregates, evaluation aggregates, flows and surveys and users, all those aggregate surveys or all those aggregate queries are impacted, as well as the observations for flows, queues, and users. So those are the only ones specifically that are impacted. If you're using any of the others, you don't have to specify the metrics. All right, well, let's do this. We're going to start from scratch. Let's go back into those developer tools. I bookmark everything, so I don't always go to the developer portal landing page. I'll come into the code editor. And I am logged in as Jim Crespino, so that this just tells me I'm logged into Jim Crespino, and my department, I always put the org that I'm in so that I know which one I'm using. So sees me. Let's run this. All right, so now those are working. Let's do that again. We'll just start from scratch. So we'll take that, go down to the documentation, go to the analytics API, go to the host analytics queue observation query. Grab all that, copy, overwrite this, get rid of those top 3 lines. Okay, we still need the body, so let me open a second tab to the developer tools. And I'll go down here to the analytics query builder and go observation, queue observation. I want and I want queue app foundry and media type of chat. Make sure that executes. It does. It's given me everything. Let's also add in a few metrics. I want to know how many calls are interacting, how many are waiting, and how many on-queue users I have. Maybe I'm going to write a dashboard, right? So I'll execute that. That looks good. So this is what I should get in my code if I send that body. I can take that body, pop back over here to the code editor. Paste that in, run this code, and lo and behold, we get some data again. So it doesn't format out the JSON really nicely like the analytics query builder does, but it's the same data. You can see we logged ours. We have some logging statements in here, right? So we do console log. So the console log says it was success, and it shows the data, and the data is going to match the same data that I got on the analytics query builder. And so you can write some pretty complex scripts in this code editor. For instance, I was monitoring the community forums a couple months back, the Genesys community forums, and somebody was asking about how to delete 25,000 emails that had built up in a queue that was not monitored by anybody. So they apparently had an email address for inbound email that was routing all those emails to a Genesys Cloud queue where there were no agents, and they wanted to clear out that queue. And there was no easy way to do that. So coming in here to this code editor, I said, all right, well, there are some queries. I can use the analytics API to give me all the calls that are in queue in that specific queue. And then I can use the conversation API to delete those interactions. And I wrote them up a really nice little script, sent them that script. They pasted it into their code editor and ran it. And They had to page through and do it a couple of times, 25,000 emails, but it cleared out their queue. So it's a useful little tool for quick and dirty stuff, but at the same time, once you get your code working here, if I were writing a Node.js app, I could take this same code and just copy it out of the code editor after I've seen it working and kind of, worked with the documentation and got everything I wanted. Then I can paste that into my actual code, compile that or build it and deploy it to a server, and then do my unit testing and make sure it's all going to work. So I've shown you a lot today. I hope you've seen all the cool stuff that we can do with our developer portal. So if you go to the Developer Center, I encourage you to really look around. We've taken a lot of time to try and put as much documentation out there to get you all started to write great integrations. We've got some excellent tutorials out there to get you started, as well as we got many more tools available for you to play with. The API Explorer is really great. It lets you go in and run any API live against your request. It's a lot like using Postman, except that it's built right in and runs live against your org. So you don't have to export anything and use a third-party tool. You can just come right in here. You can you could run those same analytics queries. Here's the queue observation. So if you wanted to paste that same JSON into here and run it, actually, let's just do that. So let's go to the query builder. We'll take that JSON. We'll do this in the API Explorer. If this works, should be able to scroll down and see I get those the same response. Again, this is an API running against my org. I can come down here and run details about my org if I want to get me. I can run that request and find out details about my org, where it's at, what features are enabled for it, etc. So a lot of useful tools there, a lot of useful content on the portal itself. And lastly, if you have any questions at all about any of this that I've shown you today, feel free to go to the forum. And that's not only for announcements that we're making. You can ask questions about the APIs and stuff out there. This is monitored by a lot of eyes. This is monitored by my team. It's monitored by the developer experience team that builds this website. It's monitored by the product managers and the engineers who are out there to answer your questions to make sure you can build successful integrations. So that is all I have to present. So I think it's time to do a little Q&A. If you have any questions, please post them into the Q&A window, and I have time to answer just about anything, and it doesn't even have to be about the analytics API. So if you have any question about Genesys Cloud, I'll try and do my best to answer it right now in the next 10 or 15 minutes. I must have done a fantastic job because nobody is posting a question.
Well, hey, Jim, we posted this in chat and you mentioned it earlier, but there was some confusion about when you were showing the announcement, the original announcement, which was August 23rd versus September.
Yes. So let me talk about that. So this is a static page. Okay, this is generated. The whole Developer Center actually is a part of our Genesys Cloud product. It is built and deployed along with our product, so it keeps in lockstep with that product. As this is a static page, they probably, if I go look at this, it still says September 23rd. It says September 23rd. So there was an original date, and that may be around somewhere. We originally scheduled this change to the Analytics API requiring metrics for August 23rd, and that date has been extended. That date got extended because in the forum, where we also made the same announcement, we got some feedback from folks about the change and how it would impact and how quickly customers and partners could address the change, and we decided to push it back an extra month. So where this is static and the forum is more dynamic, the forum actually may be a better approach. First of all, not only can you get proactively notified, but you can ask questions about the changes. So you can see, if you scroll down in the forum, a couple of people have posted wanting to know how to address the change and what it may, why it's being made and such. So please feel free to put feedback in there and let us know. We are monitoring that, and then we're giving that feedback to the product team. And because of that, the product team decided to push this change out by 1 more month to give everybody time to handle the change.
So it doesn't look like anybody has questions, but we don't really have that many people on right now, and we haven't done this before, but if anyone wants to actually ask their question out loud instead of typing it, I would be happy to unmute you if you raise your hand, because that might be easier. So we'll just maybe give it another minute. If you do have a question, just feel free to raise your hand on the Zoom, and I will let you talk. In the meantime, thanks, Jim, for going through all of this with us. I hope that everybody feels like they know what they need to do to make the updates to anything that's using this API. It doesn't look like we're going to get...
Yeah, I'd say we probably can shut it down.
Okay.
So this DevCast was recorded, as we said. It'll be on our YouTube channel. You can get to that YouTube channel through the Developer Center. And if you have any questions, please post them on the forum. We're monitoring that, and we will answer as you post. So.
Cool. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good day.
All right. You too.